Evening, folks. Welcome to a bank holiday Monday edition of the Cheese Room. I'm your host tonight because nobody else wants to do it. So there'll be no run sheet, no format. We'll just be some straight talking Spurs. So got two lovely guests with me tonight. I've got Becky and Jack. Becky, how are you? All right?
I'm very good, thank you. Glad to be here for this last one of the season. I was still hungover about an hour ago, but I'm okay now. I got in at 3:30 last night.
This
got
morning?
the train at this morning. Got the train at 9:05 yesterday. So I'm all right now. I'm not hungover, so no, it's all good.
Jack, and I hear you're on a bank holiday over in the States as well, aren't you? So how's your day been?
It's it's funny because we have Memorial Day here, so yeah, it's a bank holiday, time off, and it had not rained for 3 weeks, but it's rained consistently since Friday night until now. So we get a long weekend and it does nothing but rain.
Welcome to our world. A couple of weeks back, constant rain.
But
yeah, I mean, thankfully, guys, we can kiss that season goodbye, can't we? I mean, that is one of the most turgid, mundane, soul-destroying seasons of football I think I've seen it. Spurs. They pretty much broke me this season watching some of that. But it all finished with a victory yesterday. Becky, you were there. Like I said, we don't have slides of the team, the starting 11. But so, what were your thoughts on that starting 11? You know, there weren't a lot of changes. Porro was brought in. So when you see that, we're away to relegation, threatened Leeds. They've got to win. You see the team sheet.
Yeah.
What you think?
So on Friday, you said, didn't he, that Romero was injured and they weren't sure about Hojbjerg. So when we saw the lineup, that it was Danjuma and for Porro, and kind of shifted things around a little bit, but broadly exactly the same. For me, it was more about Leeds and about how defensive they'd set up, because obviously they needed to win just to give themselves a chance. And that was the thing that was like, for most of us, it was most surprising, is that it's a game they need to come out and, like, to be fair, Leicester took it to West Ham, wasn't it? Was it West Ham? And they went, and Leeds were, very, very poor. And that's saying something after the way we've been. It was more about their lineup, really. I knew they had some injuries, didn't they? Bamford was injured and Rodrigo.
Yeah, that's a blessing for them.
Like I said, broadly, I thought really we were quite up for it from like the get-go, really, and that with Kane scoring early on as well. I thought we sort of where we had a great position. We were almost like behind the goal line, in line with the penalty, kind of like behind the net. But we said that Leeds have got to kind of come at us, and they concede in 2 minutes. That's the sort of thing we would have done if we needed to win on a relegation day. So it was just the worst possible start for them. But we were absolutely buzzing. I just love the fact that you could see Son. Like, Son was in the middle, wasn't he? And his whole positioning. And don't get me wrong, defending's not brilliant. I'm not trying to make out something that's not. But it was nice with that kind of attacking pace forward. And then Sonny's in the middle, isn't he? He kind of flicks it over to Kane, one touch and in. And it was a great way for us to start
for a change away from home. Yeah, Jack, starting 11. Would you like to see anything different, or do you think it is what it is? We've only got the players we've got, so.
I mean, the only question is whether Richarlison or Kulusevski is going to come in. It's pretty much the only question. So I didn't even check the lineup before the game started, like I usually do, because again, I was just not that enthusiastic about the whole affair, to be honest with you. We were all playing first goal bingo in the chat room earlier before the game, trying to figure out when we were going to concede first. So, but I agree with Becky. I think that Mr. Sam, Big Sam, didn't support his statement how no one's further than him, not Pep, not Arteta, not Klopp, as he said, because you have to win. You come out with that lineup. I don't understand it, and yet you have 9 defenders on the pitch, and yet you still can't mark the guy who's got 29 goals. Or at that point 28 goals, I guess, in the box. So it's just, they were just poor. I mean, I feel bad because as an American, and Phil, to answer your question, I'm in North Carolina in the middle of the East Coast, and I feel bad just because this was touted early in the season as the United States of Leeds, and had a big American influence, and as an American soccer fan, you want them to do well. And I really think their season was poor, but it really came apart when Tyler Adams got hurt. None of the other Americans really did much for that club in my estimation, but he was immense in that side for most of the season and really cleaned up a lot of their trouble in front of goal. And I think most League fans feel the same way. So I'm disappointed for him and the American to try to make some sort of impact. Just didn't happen outside of Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, let's get the mitigation out of the way for our performance. Let's get Leeds were absolutely woeful. Like you said, for a team that needed to stay up, they were absolutely doggo. And their defense, I mean, we're bad at the back. But oh my God, we might get into it later. And then they're talking about Spurs looking at some of their defenders, and you're thinking they can't. They were awful at the back, weren't they? They were just really, really poor. There was no, and they didn't seem to have any urgency. They didn't know what they were doing. They just genuinely looked like they didn't know what they were doing.
And I thought, to be fair, the Leeds fans did their part. They were singing even when they went 1-0 down. They continued to sing. It wasn't like, if you imagine, like we've talked a lot recently about, how the atmosphere has been at Spurs, and if we needed to win to stay up, and we went goal down after 2 minutes, it would have been quite toxic. It wasn't like that at Leeds. They were still continuing to sing. It was only kind of about 25 minutes in, which is I think when Everton scored or somebody scored, maybe Leicester. Somebody scored.
Leicester, yeah.
And you could tell then the atmosphere kind of it kind of did go a little bit. But fair dues to Leeds fans, they did their absolute best to kind of keep morale going. It was only maybe when it went kind of 3-1, it sort of started turning, and they were singing songs like "Sack the Board," and then the away
not fit to wear the shirt.
Yeah, we're joining in, and there was a bit of that kind of banter because we were singing about Arsenal really from kickoff, and kind of enjoying that, and then singing songs about Kane. And I was just reading about the comments then about how Porro was playing. It was really nice to see Porro. I know he's more of an attacking player than a defensive player, and then you've got Emerson Royal, who's kind of arguably the other way around. So it was nice to see kind of Porro higher up the pitch. Kerry's just put it as well, that this is how we want to play. We'll come on to it later on in the show, I'm sure, about what's happened this afternoon over in West London. But it's this idea that, we were so bad when Conte was playing and when he was ill and not always there. And it was nice to watch yesterday. It was just a fun game to watch. We didn't really have anything to lose. Maybe we did want to get conference football, maybe we didn't. But we just went out. It wasn't like a dead rubber for us. It was a nice game to watch and to see the attacking play and good atmosphere and lots of singing and lots of smiley faces and, all of those people that have been there. Like I said before the show, it's been a long time coming an away win in the league this year. It's been a lot of really, really poor games away. Leicester, Newcastle, Liverpool was one of the better ones, but we still lost. Everton wasn't brilliant, and they're just a few I can remember. Even Brentford, even Bournemouth, wasn't it, when we scored near the end with Bentancur? It was nice to have a game where it was more enjoyable to watch.
It was good for you guys that go, you followed them around the country, and we'll probably come on to it later. But I look at that as like you said, that's a game with no pressure on, because even if we won and Villa won, we weren't going to get Conference League football, whether they wanted it or not. So that's another little thing where I'm looking, the pressure's off, so we can go out there and play and enjoy it with no pressure on, which is a little bit worrying, because you need players who want to play under pressure.
Leeds did score, so they weren't great, and they had a couple of headers, didn't they, in the first half? And a little bit of pressure, they score. Yeah. So it shows that we're still not great at the back.
That's what I was about to say. Just to come on to Jack, when wouldn't it look? We were doing well. We'll talk about certain players in a minute, but we still give chances away, didn't we? I mean, like I said, Leeds are, but we still. I mean, it doesn't really matter that we give these chances away, because there wasn't a lot riding on it in the end, but we still give a few chances away, Jack, didn't we? But did you think we were ever really in threat in that first half of going in?
I've been so burned. I assumed that we were going to concede, and I think they flashed the far post on a header 3 times, I think, and one over the box. And if they had any talent whatsoever, I think they would have equalized. I think better teams would have capitalized. There's no question. And we were, I was joking with my son during the game, and it was actually his joke. I don't know how it came about, but he says, something along the lines of, "What are we without Harry Kane?" His joke was Leeds, I mean, and so it's
Everton.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty harsh. I recognize, because there's more talent on this roster than either of those two clubs, but still. I didn't, I was just not. I was glad we were winning, but I wasn't convinced that they were going to come. And I figured Leeds would eventually respond. But then when you start, like you're saying, I think Leicester got 2-0. I think this air came out of the stadium there, and so that they really just kind of went flat after that.
And that was the discussions we sort of said at half. We said that at half time because we were 1-0 up, if you remember, at Brentford, and we hadn't taken our chances at Brentford. And then, a few of us were saying, Leeds may come out for it in the second half, and we may concede a few, and the game's over. And then we scored. Really great finish, I thought, from Porro. I know the defending was really bad, but he took it really well, I thought, Porro.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say to you, Becky. So, obviously, you've been burnt before. You've been at the ground, and to see Spurs come out in the second half and score early on. Really.
I didn't see it. Because I was underneath in the concourse getting a drink.
Lashed up. Yeah.
That's happened twice this season.
But basically, you're there, we score early on, and you think to yourself then, don't you?
Yeah.
This is going to be hard against a team this bad for us to mess this up.
Absolutely.
But that must have been a relief. Could you feel the relief? Like the fans?
Yeah. And it was, like I said, like Paul's just put there in the comments, it was, I think, because we scored first, there was, and Leeds were quite poor. There was a really lovely atmosphere in the away end. There was lots of singing, lots of chanting. It was a kind of, it was like a fun, bank holiday kind of feeling to it. It was vociferous, but it wasn't like nasty. It was, there was a bit of banter, but it was in good spirits. Like I said, some of the songs we even sang together with each home and away. So it was a really great. But to score that second goal, we were all down the concourse. Heard the massive cheer, and then tried to kind of find a TV. It's not like in the South Stand when there's like 12 TVs. It was 2, and then it was great. It was a shame they conceded, I think, but like you said, the fact that then Kane then goes and scores straight after again. Leeds were not that did. It went more toxic from their side. Then they were sort of singing things like not fit to wear the shirt, and that because they knew then they weren't coming back really.
So
which is kind of amazing. Yeah, I was going to say, it was kind of amazing that we conceded a goal to get to 2-1, and there was a response from Spurs. I mean, it's just kind of it's just surprising to see us come and do what you're supposed to do, which is answer a goal.
Yeah. Kane was really on it yesterday. Kane was really on it, I thought, yesterday. One of those games where he's really hungry, and he's like, when he was everywhere. And I've seen back on Match Today this morning when he does the flick over the referee. Is that for the second goal, isn't it? To Porro, and then he looked really on it, so that does help.
But their goal, like I was going to say, Jack, their goal, good strike by Harrison, but I put in the group, Forster's gone down in instalments. That's a little bit like a Forster's kryptonite, isn't it? Getting down, like he's a big guy, but he struggles with those type of. I mean, it was a good strike. I think a top keeper would have saved it. And Forster's a good keeper; he's not a top keeper. But, do you put any blame at Forster, or you think now it's last game of the season, we won, let's just say it was a decent goal?
Well, what I think it tells me is that at the very best, obviously, he's your backup keeper, but he's exposed because everyone who plays against him should know to put the ball on the floor. So, I mean, he can get a lot of, because of his wingspan, he can get to a lot of balls, but not down low. So that would just tell me that again, maybe the signing of the season, but at the same time, he should probably not be held at the club unless he absolutely have to. In other words, you have no better options, but you should be looking for 2 new goalkeepers to come in.
Yeah, I mean, if he's happy to stay though as a backup and play some games, I think I'll be happy with that. I think he's been probably the best backup goalkeeper we've had for a while, because we had what's his name, the rapper. Galini.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hart.
if you shot at him, used to shoot at him, it was in, wasn't it? If you hit the ball in between the sticks, it was in. We had the bloke who they all thought at one point could take over from Lloris because he was good looking, but he came out and kung fu kicked the Chelsea player. Gazzaniga, yeah, another load of old rubbish.
Hart.
Joe Hart. I think Joe Hart was better than Galini and Gazzaniga, but
I do.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Forster's
better than Vorm.
Forster still has. I know they didn't do
Yeah.
much yesterday, but he still commands the box. You know,
there
were a few where he kind of caught out of the air, and you could see him shouting. He was shouting at Skipp, and I'd like Bissouma. I remember was making some clearances. I think even maybe Porro. Because remember, we've not talked about the fact that Romero didn't play again yesterday. So he. And I know I've read the comments about the defending for their goal wasn't great, and again Longley and Davis, like they did at Brentford last week, just look a little bit slow, a little bit kind of slow to react. But Forster had that kind of commanding sort of situation where he was catching balls out of the air, and he was letting them. You could tell he was letting them when they were going well wide, and I never really at any point was worried.
He's decent, isn't he, Becky Forster? He's not brilliant. He's not top, but if your goalkeeper gets injured and he has to come in,
and he wouldn't have come here.
You're not worrying. You're not worrying.
No, he wouldn't have come here expecting to be number one. I don't think he ever probably expected that he would be a cup player, and that's what would happen. And obviously, then Lloris has got injured twice, so he's ended up playing more. But we've talked about this before when Lloris came back at Everton. Yeah, when Lloris came back at Everton, and really he shouldn't have done, and it should have been Forster that stayed. So he stepped up. And like I know we keep saying in a poor season where we've not done this and we've conceded them. I watched a match today. They said that Leeds have conceded 150 goals in 2 seasons. We've conceded a lot this season, and that's ridiculous. So it's not been a great season defensive wise, but for his part in it, Forster's done okay-ish. It's not we need another goalie, and that's true.
And the nice thing was they score a goal, and you're thinking, here we go, Spurs drop their arseholes now. Leeds will put some pressure on, but to go straight up the other end and score, Becky. The fans are going mad then, and then you think to it that killed Leeds, didn't it? That third goal.
Yeah, it did. Was this the one when Sarr passed it to Porro and then Porro passed it to Kane? Is that because I got them mixed up with the second
That's
goal?
correct.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
There was a lot of pints yesterday. And another great finish from Kane. Dave's just put in the chat that he wanted 30 goals, and I think they were saying it's only the second time I think that 2 players have got over 30 goals in one season. Obviously, Haaland's got 36, I think, isn't it? So he wanted 30, and like I said, he was genuinely, when we'll come on to Moura's goal after, he was really pleased with Moura as well, and you could see the delight on his face for that as well. So
he was top class yesterday, Kane, wasn't he? But as we'll talk about later, Jack, he's been like that. He's had a brilliant run in when we've really dropped off as a team, but he's stepped up, hasn't he? He's been fantastic. Kane.
Yeah, I don't think you're being too ridiculous as a Spurs fan to make an argument for him to be player of the season. I know he won't get it. There's no chance, but he honestly, there's only 4 games that we scored in that he doesn't have a goal involvement in. So that was the
Southampton was one of those, wasn't it? First game of the season.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's that Southampton was one. There is the away at Leicester. There's a 4-2 loss. I don't think he scored at the City game, and he didn't score in the 1-1 tie with or assist in the 1-1 with West Ham. But it's like 4 or 5 games. I think it's actually 6. I think we did the math, my son, this morning, about 6 games where he doesn't have a goal involvement. And if you take his goals out of this team, I realize other people would have been in positions. You would have played different positions and formations and strategies and that sort of stuff. So you can't just take his goals away and then subtract the points and say we would have been relegated. But you're talking about a team that would be somewhere between 12 and 16, more than likely without him. And he kept us up competitive for a good part of the season. So, it's ridiculous. No one really appreciates how good he is, I think, outside of a few people in the media and Spurs fans, and maybe Gareth Southgate. That's about it.
Yeah, he's probably our most underrated player. Yeah, he's amazing. If you want to look at it like that. But Becky, we'll come on to that now. But before we come on to a certain individual's performance, obviously the 4th goal is Lucas on his last appearance for us. Now, obviously, I'm not a massive Lucas fan, but I was genuinely happy to see him score that. It's a good.
I don't know whether it was the number of pints or the sun, or there were grown men weeping when that goal went in. What was really the fact that for me I loved is when we got to sort of, I don't know, I forget what timings were, maybe 80 minutes. And I thought, oh, this is the last game. I'm going to film some songs because we haven't got anything to do for 3 months. So I was like, I'll film some songs. So we doing lots of singing, and there was a new Kulusevski song that was being played, and people were singing Richarlison songs, and I was sort of filming them. And then I was filming the crowd, I think, doing There's Only One Lucas Moura, which, to be fair, we sang for quite a long time. And then I ended up filming his goal. And I never do that. You know, people might have seen on Twitter today that I put a lot of videos up because it was just the last game of the season. I wanted to kind of bring them home, show Jack. But I was like, it's the last time. Some of these players we might not see again, for example. And then then he kind of gets the ball and takes on the one player who kind of dives past him, doesn't he? And then he just goes, and then he's keeping going, and I'm carrying on, and like kind of ended up filming home. So, and then the whole like celebration, which was right in front of me. And then even when I texted Jack afterwards, he went, "Oh, it was like last year at Sonny at Norwich when they lifted him up at the end when he got the golden boot." And I was like, "Yes, that is exactly what it was like." They lifted up Moura, and you know he was crying again. But everybody, like, if you watch it back, everybody runs from the dugout, you know, even like the young lads that came on, and like Sonny comes running because he'd gone off by then, and everybody kind of comes over into the corner. It was just really, it was very similar to last season, but with completely different kind of makeup to the end of the game. But it was nice for Moore, and I'm the same. He's had when we were back on the train last night, we were saying, I don't think he scored for 2 seasons. So to score in his last appearance for Spurs, he would have been delighted with that because he hasn't had the return. I can't. I'm sure I went on the app and I couldn't find one. It might be wrong.
Last goal he
I'll
scored
remember it.
a great strike against Norwich, which was obviously last season, didn't he, in the league?
Because he did that great assist for Sonny, didn't he, last year? We did that kind of like turn assist for Sonny when Sonny curled that one in against Norwich. But genuinely, really struggled to think of any this year.
I'm not surprised he hasn't assisted or scored a lot of goals. Like, but Jack, how did that make you feel? Did it make you feel all warm and cuddly inside when he poked that one over the keeper after all them players just like dived it? I mean, the defending was horrendous, wasn't it? It was the best thing to do that if they put the Benny Hill music on and then sped up and run into the goal a little bit. That would be brilliant. But how did it make you feel, mate?
Well, I'll be honest. I turned to the Everton game. So I didn't actually see it. I had to go back and watch the highlights. And when I watched it, I hadn't really thought about Benny Hill, but that first lunging tackle by their left back is definitely for a Benny Hill backtrack. There's no question about that. It was. I mean, they were done. They were. It was kind of like, does it really matter if he scores? So I was not overly. Again, Lucas gave us all every time he was there. I'm not a huge, like you, I'm not a huge fan of his.
He did give us all.
I never questioned his heart or his desire to help the team. He's just a very limited football IQ and a limited skill set. And so, he had 1 goal this season, and it was 9 minutes of a almost meaningless match. So it's glad that he gets a great send off for him. And I will say this: he was clearly popular with the squad. I mean, you cannot deny 100%. That celebration from the team. He's a big favorite.
And a lot of people were saying yesterday, they were like, it's still one of the best memories ever as a Spurs fan in recent times. It's down to Moura. And I know we've said this before. We need to move on from that, and we haven't kicked on, and he hasn't done much since. But it's still you say to people what was one of the best, particularly those that were there as well in Ajax. It's nuts.
Well, it'd be the best moment of a lot of people. A lot of people have never seen Spurs win anything, and that's as big as it gets for them. But
but the thing is, we were delighted because I really wanted Richarlison to score yesterday. I think I didn't want him to kind of finish the season not having scored really, apart from Liverpool in the league.
Goal.
And
he's got 1 goal.
Yeah, at Liverpool. So we wanted him to score, which is why we were singing a lot for Richarlison yesterday. But even he was really delighted for Moura. He kind of runs over, doesn't he? And Emerson Royal's there with him, and it was really lovely. A lot of people were saying what a best way to end. Yeah, so it was
fantastic way to end for him. It's just obviously I'm glad he scored, so I can say that. But I'm a little bit sort of like I don't get. Trying hard and enough for me. You got to have a bit of quality, like all the people who love Lamella. It's like, just be better, mate. I'm glad you're running around a bit, but just be better. But yeah, great way to send Lucas off. And like you said, I do believe that he always tried. Bless him. But yeah, so the game finishes. We win 4-1 away from home. Leeds are relegated. How did you feel at the final whistle, Beck? Because obviously you found out that Villa have won. No European football for us. How does that make you feel? What's your opinion on this?
Well, I was just. It's a tricky one, isn't it? We were talking a lot on the train about Brighton being in Europe next year and Newcastle being in Europe, and we at Villa, and we were like, how's it going to affect them playing twice a week for most of the season, and how's their squad depth going to be affected and stuff like that. So, it's great for them, and they can have some fun with it. For a club of our stature, we should be in Europe, and we're not, and that is the kind of truth of it. But equally, if that means that we can have a rebuild and we've got longer to prepare for between games, which sometimes doesn't actually help, but anyway, I would have liked us to have got in Europe. Would like to do an away game in Cyprus, for example.
Won't we all?
That'll have to wait for 2 years now at least. So it is what it is. This, like we said, it was a game where we knew that was possible. That's ended up being what it is. That's what's happened. I know some people didn't want us to get into Europe, so they're quite pleased. I don't know. We need to see what happens, don't we? The next month, 2 months, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, I want to finish. I want to finish. I'm a terrible loser. I'm a really bad loser. I want to finish as high as I can. I want to win every game, even though that's not possible. And I wanted to finish in Europe. I mean, Jack, I think we've had this discussion before. If you finish in that position, it's no good thinking you're like Villa will enter that competition. They won't think it's below them. They will go to win it, which makes it worthwhile then. Yeah. But what's your take on it before I give my opinion on finishing in the European spots?
I've always seen both sides of that argument, and it really depends on the manager you hire and whether or not the club in a whole is going to treat the competition with respect and try to win it. Emery is going to try and win that for Villa. There's no question in my mind, but that may hurt them because we'll see how much they can invest, but they're not a deep squad, so they may have trouble. There's been plenty of teams who've come up from nowhere like Brighton to get into Europe and then have that completely send their season downhill the following year. But I think that for me, I always like more competitions. I always like more games on television. I don't get to go to away games in Cyprus. That'd be awesome. But I do like the midweek game. And given the size of our squad potentially, as well as maybe a coach that would give a path to the youth. I mean, we saw, was it Craig or Abbott that came in and just had a crunching tackle in the box?
Abbott, was it?
Yeah, one of them I forgot. We got some kids who need a path, and so another competition, particularly the Conference League, would give you that opportunity. So even if you don't treat it seriously because you load up on the FA Cup, something wonderful like that, where you take that seriously, you could give these kids a chance to play in some competitive games on a big stage for them. So the fact that we're not in it, I'm not fussed either, because you say now you know what you have in front of you. You're going to play mostly once a week, and the new manager, assuming we hire one, I should say, that they'll have more time on the training pitch to impart his ideas. So I kind of either way it kind of works out, but I would prefer to be having more competitions than fewer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I totally get you, Jack. I take that point of view where people say the new manager will have more time on the training ground. But I think that is an ideal time to give young kids games in the earlier rounds. If it's like everyone says, a Tin Pot Cup, then the early rounds should be a lot easier. So you can play players who are coming back from injury, players who aren't playing. And I just want to finish as high as possible all the time, and it'll spur those teams on. But yeah, for me, I wanted to be in Europe, but it's not to be now. So we got to forget about that. So, like Beck, where do we go now? What happens now at Spurs, in your opinion? How long do we let this drag on with no manager, no director of football? Where do we go? What's happen now? In your
obviously,
opinion?
For those of you that don't know, it was announced that Potter's gone to Chelsea. I know it's been rumoured for ages, hasn't it? I remember I was at the game yesterday and said it had been released something yesterday as well, but it's officially today. And people are like, they sacked Tuchel before, or Potter, whoever it was now, Potter before Conte, and they've had longer and they've got themselves sorted out quicker and blah, blah, blah. The thing, I was reading something on Twitter today is about, it would just help if they gave us some kind of indication. So like you're saying, that it's been rambling on. There may be things going on behind the scenes that they just haven't communicated. And we were saying this a lot yesterday. If they just communicated what was going on, then people wouldn't lose their minds over so-called rumours that, bots seem to be able to generate. So sometimes just a little bit of kind of good PR would help, unless they are doing nothing or everyone they get contact says no. So that's what I think would help. We needed a director of football. I don't know if you've seen Danjuma's post today. It sounds like he's going, the way he's kind of worded it. It's quite lengthy in that sense. I mean, I said that to my Dave, and Dave went, "Well, we haven't got a manager yet. How do you know the manager doesn't like Danjuma?" And I was like, "Exactly. This is the problem." So it needs to be sorted. Whether it is Nagelsmann again, possibly. But is it going to be? It needs to be sorted out, because for me, the next thing, if they can do it, is sort Kane. So I know we've got lots of players coming back from loan, but now with Poch going to Chelsea, we need the club to sit down and say to Kane, "Here's the keys to Tottenham. You can have them. We'll pay you whatever you want as long as you stay." And if they're not going to do that, then please just get on and do it, because already, I think of something, and even a match of the day yesterday, or someone messaged me saying, "Oh, you scored," and they went straight in going, "Oh, this is Harry Kane's last game for Tottenham," and it's just tiresome.
They'll do that anyway, Beck. They've been doing it.
That's what I mean. But from the club's point of view, they could sort it, couldn't they? And that would be almost like the signing of the summer, wouldn't it? Because it really would be.
I'm not sure if I mean, it's got to be both sides. Not the club can't sort it. If Kane doesn't want to sign a new contract, and I do not want Kane to leave.
But rather than just waiting for him to sort of, speak to others, I always think when he goes on England duty, obviously I know they speak.
That's what robots. But that's what they do. They've been doing that for years. They get tapped up.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, if the club actually want to do something right, then sort that. Don't just sort of say, "Oh," like with the whole Poch thing. Was he contacted or not? He was sitting there waiting by the phone, and he wasn't, and we're now told he wasn't contacted. Equally, I just think surely Poch could have picked up the phone as well. I don't always think it's just completely one-sided like that, is it? But if they want him to stay, then do it. If Kane doesn't, equally, I'm sure he's professional enough that he would explain what's going on, and then we would know, and then we can sort out all these players that come on loan, sort out who's staying and who's not. But we can't do any of that without the manager and director of football. So if they've been spending 62 days or whatever it is sorting that out, and now the season's finished and the majority of the leagues have finished their leagues, then they need to spend the rest of June, isn't it really now, to sort it out, because otherwise we go away to the season tour in Australia and we don't know who's there. We've got kit launch next week, stuff like this. People read into who's in the kit launch and who's not in the kit launch.
That's all been done, hasn't it, though, Beck? The kit launch, all those pictures will have been taken. But like Scottish Cup finals next week, isn't it? So, what's your take on it then, Jack? Look, the whole where do we go next with Spurs? Like what Becky's just said. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think's happening? Do you think these things are happening behind the scenes?
I'll be honest with you. It is. I'm so frustrated that I've decided to become already exhausted by it all, because I look at this club, and I see the last 22 years where when this ownership came in, there wasn't a hell of a lot of difference between Leeds, Everton, Tottenham. There's a whole lot of clubs that had great histories, great fan bases, success in various places. But over the last 20 years, we've seen Tottenham progress to be one of the richest clubs in the world, one of the biggest self-sustaining clubs in the world, execute a clear commercial plan, almost get to all the way to the top, as we all know, with Poch, and then just completely and utterly flounder. It's like Dr. Jekyll on the commercial side, Mr. Hyde on the football side. And it just is, it's maddening. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I can tell you right now that the club's, we know nothing. We know, we will never know more than 20% of what actually is going on, but it just seems it's completely leaderless and rudderless. And the longer this goes on, the more players are going to disengage and think about their next option and all that sort of stuff. And it just seems so unnecessary. I mean, I with that said, I mean, I look at the odds right now, and unfortunately, we look at it, and Rodgers is still the, for what good bookies odds are, but Rodgers is still the favorite, followed by Ange. I would rather them wait and take a little bit more time rather than hire Rodgers. I think that is the worst choice, but it's better than, I guess, nothing. But I still think it's almost next to nothing. But they need to, Scottish cop, I understand. That would be, if that's who you've settled. I mean, personally, I'm a big supporter, big fan of Ange. I've spent a lot of time looking into that. I know I'm maybe not popular with that call. I also like Thomas Frank a lot, but I don't know if they're not going to pay for Slot, I can't imagine they're going to pull Frank out of Brentford. But still, the longer this goes on, it just becomes more unbearable. But I don't think Levy could give a flying. He is impervious to fans' opinions or media criticism or any of that. It just rolls off his back, from what I can tell. And I don't think he's a horrible person. I think he actually wants the club to be successful. He actually wants to do the right thing. I just think he's proven that he's somewhat incapable on the football side. And maybe Munn is working very hard in his garden, and he's got his phone out and he's calling people. He's got his laptop going in his garden, and he's pulling strings and making moves. And soon we're going to see something emerge. And I cross my fingers and hope. But I fear for the next 30 days.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. I think social media doesn't help with any of these. You see names come up and people are like, get in the bin. Do not want him at Spurs. I don't want Brendan Rodgers. I don't think Brendan Rodgers will be as bad as like people will make out. Like if Brendan Rodgers was to get the job, it'd be like end of day stuff. But I think he would be better. And the same with Ange, like you spoke about him. I didn't know anything about Postecoglou, but so what I did was I read some stuff. I've watched interviews and I've listened to some podcasts where he's been interviewed and talked about how he conducts himself and what he brings to a club and what he does. And yeah, his CV isn't great, but if you didn't look at the name and you just heard him talk, well, you'd know, I suppose, if you heard him talk. But if you that guy, what he would bring to a club is exactly what Spurs need.
I agree 100%.
If it was written down and you read it and you heard it and they changed his voice, because obviously he's an Aussie, it'd be exactly what Spurs would need. But, I mean, I'm not saying he's my first choice. I'm just saying that you look on social media and stuff like that, and people are like, oh, we don't want this bloke. He's never managed. He's only managed in Japan, and he's
won everywhere he's gone. Yeah, he's won everywhere he's been.
And Martin Jol managed some Dutch clubs that had gone nowhere when he came to Spurs. But like Becky, so we're talking about these people. Who do you want as the next manager of Spurs? When you see what's going on out there, who do you want?
Can't say my usual answer anymore.
No, he's gone. I
don't know. I've said this before. I don't know. I listened to what you said there, and I'm the same. You the same. You see the arguments on Twitter. People going, no, that person's got no experience, and they're in so-called, even when it was Slot, the league, it's not standards good enough, and then you got the next person saying, yeah, but we tried it with win now managers, and that didn't work either. So you have to have one or the other, and you're either going to get someone who's on the up, who we're going to have to pay to release out of their current contract, or with someone who's just been sacked. There's no other way of doing it, and they need to decide which is that they're going to be. It's just that there were leaks on Friday, I think, about saying that Spurs want to have a young, progressive manager. Yeah. And this Ange fella's like 56, isn't he? Is that right? Yeah, not even that it follows the idea. It just goes back to my original point a minute ago. It's like, just give us some sort of communication, then we would know. But I know when David said on here before, he's like, I think maybe Caller said it. They don't have to tell us anything. No, they don't. But if Mason keeps saying they want to get someone who's going to connect the club again and bring the connection with the fans, and Kane's message yesterday after the match was very much about the fans and the loyalty they've shown him. He does mention us. If that's what they're saying, then just give us a little bit of information, because it will stop all this sort of bickering with people who've got nothing better to do.
What other clubs do that? Can we name any clubs that do that?
I don't know, but there's ways that they could. There are, there's certain journalists that work within the club, aren't there? Or there can be little kind of nuggets of things. Like even Mason could say something. I don't know. I just think a lot of people have a criticism of Levy is the lack of communication, and the lack of communication is what causes this sort of perception that nothing is happening, or they're just flying around and then they change their mind and then they say something else, and then I think from a PR point of view, it would be helpful. It can't be any worse. Continuing like this is just making people more and more frustrated, and that anger then goes at them. Now, people are saying in the chat about that being nonsense. That's fine, but I just think if you carry on being like this, and then you just said over there before, Matt, you're like, it's just they're just doing nothing and it's just rambling on. But we don't know that. It may not be. They may have sorted people. This is what I mean.
People in the club, Beck, I should imagine, they won't know exactly what's going on, but like they'll know what they'll have heard things and what's going on. Those things I can't see. I can't see them ever. You know, like Gold came out the other week, didn't he, and said they're not having talks with Nagelsmann anymore. They've knocked that one on the head. I don't think you're going to get them because of saying, "Oh, this is what we want to do. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at talking to this guy." Because if it goes, you can't win. They're in a no-win situation.
No, but they don't even have to say who it is. They could just say they could say negotiations are ongoing. They didn't have to. You know, the saying of nothing means people just assume things. Yeah, it is how long. So we've had that with signings, haven't we? They do the same thing with signings. Trying to kind of shave 5 million off something is usually what causes the problem, and that's the frustration as well. And now they can obviously say they're not in Europe, can't they? So they can use that now.
Oh, absolutely. So we've gone off on a slight tangent, Becky. Who do you want as the next manager? Come on.
I don't know.
If you obviously out of the list of possible,
I'll say Nagelsmann just because he seems to be the one that people keep telling me that he seems to be the most decent. But I don't know.
What they built. Yeah. And Jack, on to you then. Who do you want to see the next appointment?
Well, who I would love to see come in, if I just, so I'm playing Football Manager, which I don't play, but if I was just picking a manager, it'd probably be De Zerbi. Yeah. I've been on his boat for a while because I think, so that's not happening, and it would be, I don't know why he would want to leave Brentford. That would be silly, in my opinion. I was big on company. My thing is, you really need a big personality, because the club needs a big personality, someone who's very passionate, very positive, and plays attacking football, right? That's what you're going to need. I'm not a fan of Nagelsmann. I heard I've been told, I say HG, our resident German football expert, talks a lot about it and says, you know, he didn't get along with a lot of the senior players in the dressing room, and I fear about Nagelsmann, not from a tactical standpoint, but rather, you know, if he does well, let's say he does well with Spurs, then we're going to have to hear all the links with Real Madrid or some other bigger club. And I just feel like he's looking at this would be a stepping stone. I'm not a big fan of that. I want someone who wants to be at the club. This would be their biggest job and be committed to stay for a period of time. You know, I'm not against Potter like so many people are. I don't think what happened at Chelsea is his fault. I think it's that American bully came in that just completely created a squad that almost no one could manage, with a bunch of personalities that clearly weren't coming together. So I've always was a fan of his, and I think one of his biggest problems with him, they didn't score, but guess what? We have somebody at the club who can score, maybe two. Maybe so three. I'd be okay with Potter. I just don't know if he's big enough a personality to with what we need. So that's the reason why, you know, I really like the manager would in the Premier League, because I don't follow the other leagues that much. The manager that really has a style that would require the least amount of open heart surgery on the squad is probably Frank, because he plays from a 4-3-3 or 3-5-2, and if you look at how he wants to build up, I would love to see him come over with Raya. That would be great. I would even take Ben Mee as a center back. Not that he's the answer to our problems, but he'd probably be the least difficult to bring in terms of a tactics on that squad. But I keep coming back to Ange because I think he's available. I think he would be more than affordable, and I think he'd be a huge personality that people would come to love. The problem is, he learned from the City Group in Japan, and his style in Australia was much different than when he played his team in Japan and what he's done in Celtic. He's playing that Pep Guardiola type of system, and you know, you need ball playing center backs. We have the midfielders probably for it, because I think both Bentancur and Bissouma could do what that what he has his midfielders do. We have some pieces, but it would require some serious smart investing, particularly in the back line and a goalkeeper to make that work. And we haven't demonstrated that ability of smart recruitment, obviously. So
that's what's got to be done first of all, isn't it, Jack? That's got to be done whoever comes in.
Yeah, that's true. We need help on the back line, no matter who you hire. I mean, Mason stays the coach, you're still going to have to invest in the back line. I mean, that's you give up 63 goals, and it's not. I don't think it requires a lot of football insight to understand where the problems might be. So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Ange. I'll be honest with you. I don't care that he hasn't coached at a high enough level, and Celtic is like the Man City of the Scottish League. I think his resume warrants some attention. That's my feel for it. But Rodgers I think it's going to be the board's choice ultimately, because as long as they don't mind paying him, because they'll see him as a stabilizing force that's not going to blow your team up. I think that's wrong. I don't think I'm just not a fan. I just don't.
They could have appointed him today, though, Jack.
Yes, they could have.
Brendan Rodgers, they could have appointed him today.
They could have. They could. Yeah, you're right.
We could have an appointment the next couple of days. If we don't hear anything this week, you're likely to have to wait till after the cup finals, possibly.
Yeah.
Then but because Spurs can crack on with this manager thing now, they just need to get it sorted. Like Beck said, whatever happens, they don't even have to tell us. Just Chelsea got rid of their manager after we moved ours on, but they were done and dusted, made their mind up, got it done, and that's what Spurs need to do. So, that's where we're at now. I'm sure we'll be talking about this on shows through the summer. The hope's got to be that they get it done pretty quick. But like for people on here, like I said, I didn't know anything about Ange Postecoglou. I don't want to keep calling him Ange the Postecoglou. But I did some research on him, and I was surprised. He's an impressive character. So for people who were sort of against him, if he's going to be the coach, I'd go and look up some stuff. And they might, you might be convinced. But right, Beck, we got a Enic in, Enic out, shake it all about. Yeah, yesterday's game, Levy in, Levy out chance. Levy in chance. A Levy out chance yesterday.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, like I said, we were thinking about Arsenal. Then we were thinking about Kane because Kane scored. Then we were kind of like Levy out ones may even have been full kick-off actually. And then kind of like a sprinkling, and then more like in the second half we were going through all the players really. Kulusevski, Richarlison. I was trying to get a nice one Sonny chant going. Joe was like, "You can't sing that. He hasn't scored." I was like, "Well, neither was Richarlison. Why are we singing his song then?"
You can sing it if he ain't scored, but yeah.
So it was the atmosphere was like a carnival atmosphere then. But it was. I was saying this on a train. It's the most audible Levy out I've heard. And the amount of away fans that yesterday was about the same as at Villa, and it was more audible yesterday. Like I said, they Leeds fans were singing "Sack the Board," so then Spurs fans started singing "Sack the Board," so we had like a connection of the song. That was about 4 times. That about 4 or 5 times. That was quite funny.
Was there purple and gold scarves about Beck?
I always see about 4 or 5 each game. So I did see a couple balloons or a few balloons, but like I said, it wasn't. They lower down. I think there were people with flags as well, but there were a lot of people who bought Brazil flags and had like cards that had Moura and things written on them. So there were kids there as well yesterday. So like I said, it was
obviously the people who protested at the home games. Was there? I'm trying to be, because as like these shows are, I'm trying to put it out there that that we are we talk about both sides. So would you say there was a good showing from the Levy out brigade, yeah? Put their point across, and it was well heard.
Yeah.
Could you
because
hear
we just said there though, we were talking about where we would be without what had happened this season. So without Kane, where would we be in the league? And you think of how Everton have survived in the last game of the season again. They're saying, I'm going to say in the radio today that we need to kick on and we can't keep doing this. And then you think, well, I was thinking this, Leicester haven't necessarily been one of the worst teams this year. Southampton have been poor, but Leicester have had some funny fixtures, and to win 2-0 yesterday and still go down must be so annoying. Leeds they just concede too many, and they're very, very poor at the back. And then when they can't score, they're obviously in trouble.
Yeah.
But there'll be teams next year that won't perform as well. Wolves have done very well. we don't. Palace may struggle again. Forest may not do as well. So, and these teams obviously that then come up as well. But I'm not trying to compare us with relegation teams. I'm just trying to say that everything we just talked about there has got to cause us to be better and to move on. And if we're not in Europe, we're going to hopefully be in the cups, and we've got to kind of use that as the rebuild.
Yeah, actually, as you mentioned the Wolves manager, I'll throw him. That's someone who could be available. Yeah, because there's a lot of not rumor, but a lot of social media chatter about how he's really unhappy of the fact that he's got no money to spend. Again, a club that should be able to spend money. I don't know their finances as well as I know others, but the fact is he took them from almost bottom of the league up to mid-table. He's got a good resume, and he'd be gettable. So that would be, he wouldn't be. I don't know if he's is passionate and fiery and big personality. I don't know him that well, but at least what he's done at Wolves and what he's done previously is a decent track record.
He schooled us when we played Wolves. He outcoached Conte in that game, and I think they had overspent massively, sort of like they were £45 million or £65 million over the budget that they need to be. Don't know whether it was for financial fair play, and then they've spent more since then. So they've got to save money. So they're talking about possibly of getting him going. But I think he is a good option. Don't know what other people would think about that, but he is a good option. But he schooled Conte, didn't he? When we played Wolves, you were at Wolves away, weren't you?
Yeah. So even the substitutions that he made, and I was listening to the playoff final. So on Saturday, I was sitting in the garden listening to the playoff final, and he's called Ian, the Plymouth manager, with the kind of West Country accent. Holloway, that's him. He was saying these players have been really well coached. You can tell they've been really well coached, and he kept using that phrase. And I thought, no one ever says that about Spurs.
No,
they never say they're a really good coach team. Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to say is that you just need a manager who's just going to kind of bring them in and whatever it is, give them some coaching. And that sounds ridiculous. He should be able to do have some football intelligence, but it was very clear. He kept saying, these players have been really coached. And I thought, we talk about Brighton. I've seen in the chat about different teams and Brentford, and and the same with the Wolves guy. To come in and whoever it is and just coach them, and that sounds
the players
absurd, doesn't it?
Spurs have got some poor players. They have defensively. They've got some poor players. They need upgrading. And people to think, Spurs, we're going to go downhill. If we play, relegation fodder. If Kane goes, that'll be the end of us. Nobody wants Kane to go, and it is possibly. But I'm telling you now, and I truly, truly believe this, that serious coaching. We finished a point behind Villa, who finished in the Conference League. I think it was only 2 behind Brighton in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I know other teams will come. Other teams will progress. So we're not a million miles behind those teams that finished in front of us. But they've had, the two, Villa and Brighton have both had the luxury of being extremely, extremely well coached. They've had structure. Our players haven't had that for ages. If somebody comes in and puts some serious coaching into this squad, it's not all doom and gloom.
But that's why it needs to be done quickly. That's why it needs to be done quickly, isn't it? They need to have a pre-season, and because there's going to be a change of formation, or because Mason's tried to do it, hasn't he? He's tried to make it a bit more kind of progressive, and he's tinkered with systems and things. That's what they need to hurry up, and that's why people are frustrated, because they're like, it's been 60 days.
Yeah, it does drag on for too long, but those players probably don't come back. They'll all go on their holidays now. They'll be away for 2-3 weeks. Then they'll probably come. When will they come back, Jack? In a month or so? So they have still got. I think
it's July 8th or something like that. Don't hold me to that.
But you want the bloke in place, and I don't know how the board are going to do it. Like with obviously season ticket holders and memberships. Like I've been a membership or a season ticket holder at Spurs since I was 14. And I know it doesn't mean anything. It's a drop in the ocean. Even when I haven't been able to go, I've just done it because I support Spurs, and it's me putting my little bit into the club. But I've cancelled mine this year. I need to see something back from the club. not to do it, but I just want to see what's going on. And you've got season ticket renewals coming up, and still nothing happening. I just, I don't know how that's going to wash. I should imagine everybody will still renew their season tickets because people do it because it's their life. But that'll be an interesting one, won't it, Beck?
Yeah, they'll never really announce that though. The only way you find out is if the people who are One Hotspur Plus members will get contacted. I know I've got friends that are like, I don't know, like 50,000th in the line. If they get contacted, then they're going to know that people have voted with their feet. I think the increased price in the Hotspur Plus membership wasn't ideal. I think if they're going to say they're going to freeze
another
tickets
PR
and then do that,
that was another.
That's
gaff.
not great, is it? And of course, the Beyonce thing's on today, isn't it? So I keep seeing lots of pictures of that. And then,
but there's not a problem with that, though, is there, Beck? If they get the stuff right on the football pitch, and Jack, if they get the stuff right on the football pitch, having Beyonce there and all the other bits.
No, and I don't have any issue with that. I think they run that side really well. The problem is we were like the year after COVID, we were like, we'll give them benefits out. We haven't had a full season in the stadium, and now we've had a full season in the stadium. It's like, okay, so this is the next bit, That's what it's like this. The loyalty's kind of running out, and people are saying they're not going to renew their memberships because it's like, how much longer do I have to keep waiting for what I'm supposed to? And I said this before, that players that will go, and I think we'll get this with a few players that leave, they keep using this phrase of big things are coming to Spurs, and 5 or 6 players have said it. Going back from Hart probably onwards, and I was like, what is that? What is that? What are we waiting for?
Beyonce.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
They must have known she was coming. Yeah, it's got to be the footballing decisions. But I'll come to you. This is a bit arse about face. I wanted to talk about Bissouma yesterday. Like, we're talking about signings. Bissouma's come back the last 2 games. Like real old football cliche, but he'll be like a new signing next year, won't he? He was fantastic yesterday.
Well, Bissouma, as everybody knows, was misused or told to do something he wasn't comfortable with, and then battled injuries all year. But there's no question that he's arguably the most versatile midfielder. I mean, Bentancur, we'll see, he should come back fine. I've had 2 ACLs. I'm not a world-class footballer, but it's something you can come back from. I don't worry. Today's world and the way they do surgeries, I mean, the rehab that they do, it shouldn't be an issue. So I think with those 2 playing kind of in an 8 role, and you can or 6-8 combination, I think those 2 midfielders will look great. And Bissouma showed that he's class when you took the shackles off. He's comfortable with the ball. He's when he gets the ball, it's not just to go back to the fullback. He actually turns and looks upfield, because he knows that he can hold you off. Even if you're pressing him, he keeps the ball between you and between him and the defender, and moves forward, and he can cross a good switch of play, or he can play a threaded ball. He's just a versatile player, and it's just one. I mean, we were all excited as hell when he signed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a single Spurs fan who's like, "Oh, that's a terrible signing." I mean, he was regarded as the best midfielder, not playing for a traditional top 6 team when he got signed. So I'm thrilled that he's back, and I'm look forward to him being a regular starter next year.
Penny for his thoughts, though, after leaving Brighton and what's happened to Brighton this year and what's happened to us. It must think.
He got more than a penny.
Yeah,
that happens, though, Beth, doesn't it?
I know it does, but it's funny, isn't it, how things work out?
Well, he probably went from 25 to 75 a week, so I'm sure he's all right.
True, maybe.
Regardless, Brighton are an extremely well-run club, Beck, but we are a bigger club, and if we can get everything right, we should be able to push on further than possibly Brighton could. But what did you think to Bissouma yesterday?
Yeah, I can't remember a great deal because of where I was. I could only really see either.
Incredibly drunk.
I remember Sarr more.
I'll tell you what then. What about Porro? What about Porro?
Yeah,
I thought he was decent yesterday.
Like you said, he was kind of finding spaces, and someone put in the comment then about how when Kane scores his second goal, he points, doesn't he, straight at Porro, much like when he did was it the Brentford goal? No, the Brentford was the free kick. The Palace goal, wasn't it, when Porro crossed it over and Kane headed it in? He points at him then. So someone put in the comments about how Kane and Porro sort of seeing that benefit. I like I said, Porro, Sarr, I thought Sarr did all right when he came on. That was nice. Made some nice kind of passes of play as well, and it was nice to see the 2 young lads come on, because obviously we've got Divine, haven't we, at the under-20 World Cup thing, so that was nice to see that kind of, And I know it was a game where it was over and it was won, and you can do that in games with we don't want them to be. I said, I think it was Franco. I saw Franco at the Palace game. He said he can't remember a time where there was not really anything to play for. So we don't want games where there's nothing riding on it. But it was nice to see that kind of opportunity to bring those players in. And I was kind of psychoanalyzing what Mason said after the game, trying to work out whether it was him that was staying, because he talked about how we've got a lot of players coming back, and he didn't say but he was sort of saying, you know, they've got to sort out that and then work out who's, and he kind of trying to. I don't think he's ready. I said this a few weeks ago. I like the way he changes things up. I like the way he changes formation. He gets different players on, but I think when we have trickier teams, he's tactically not quite there yet. But you know, if Kane wants him to be there, and I want Kane.
We can't do that though.
You can't do
that.
You can't do that. But if you know, we don't know how much say-so Kane has, do we, behind the scenes, because he is so integral to us. I was thinking about this yesterday. He's had 2 seasons now where he hasn't got injured. If we go back to the Champions League year where he was always injured, or he was getting injured from like February onwards, wasn't he? And you know, it's been 2 seasons where he hasn't been injured.
But I mean, Mason for me, you'll see what he's at, because now if he really feels he's ready, he should be saying to Spurs, look, I'm going to go out. I need to find my own way now. If he just stays about to be the bloke who takes over when somebody leaves, he's not, then that really says it all about him. I think he said a lot. I think he's a walking, he's swallowed the football cliches book. He says the right things, but look, he's nowhere near at it. He hadn't had a lot, he's coming after Stellini. He has changed. We play the same sort of formation. There's just a little bit more effort and a little bit more willingness to play.
I think there's more formation change off the ball, isn't there? So they sort of go into different patterns to play off the ball. Yeah.
They're not so restricted, are they, under Mason?
Yeah.
So, and anybody really could have done that. I don't really buy that he's going to be I don't know where people get he's going to be a really good manager. I'm sure he'll be a really good manager one day, and he'll come back and manage Spurs. I don't know where we get that from, but Jack, on Mason, what do you think for him next? Does he hang around or does he go?
I think the reason why people say he's going to be a really good manager is just because both Jose and
Spurs
Conte have spoken highly of him. But I don't know what you can take from that. I will say that he is, for his own career, I mean, again, he should be moving on. Because to your point, just like Rodgers, if they wanted Rodgers to be manager, he should be announced this week. Same thing with Mason. If you want him to be your manager, then announce it and let's get on with it. We can all bitch and moan and cry about the decision that you've made and all that sort of stuff. But let's get on with it. Right. So let's just. But if he knows, if he should be walking into the office, tomorrow and saying, okay, am I a candidate or not? And if I'm not a candidate, tell me like a man. I need to go find a job. Because I'm sure there's a League One or two or even maybe a championship squad. I don't know. I can't speak that. I don't have the knowledge to know, but I can't imagine there isn't someone who would give that guy a club and an opportunity and let him work his way up. I mean, there's no question why he shouldn't be doing that. But I wouldn't hang around a week unless I'm told I'm going to be formally interviewed for the job and have a decision by mid-June or whatever it is, whatever the time frame that they would communicate.
Just on a little tangent, I was on the stuff I was looking up on Postecoglou. He never takes any, very, very rarely. I think he said there's one bloke who he did once. He never takes any staff with him. Big thing about him is he likes to meet new people, he likes to work with new people and get people to pass their ideas over. And because he said, he needs to know about the club and all that type of thing. So if Postecoglou comes in, he might want to keep Mason on. Because he said he literally has different stuff every job he's been at. He brings new stuff with him, so it invigorates him.
Right. From a new manager standpoint, that makes sense. I would want someone who knows the club, and Mason would be ideal for my staff because he's been there almost his entire football life. For Mason, you asked me what he should do. I was like, well, he should move on to get his own job.
Yeah.
But for a new manager, I would want to keep him around for someone who I could talk to in the back room off the record, say, what the hell's up with or why do we do whatever.
Because then you'd think the transition would be quicker as well, wouldn't it? Because it's like you said, they know the staff and things, don't they? And
Yeah. So, I mean, how did you feel about Leeds going down, Beck, when you were there? Did you feel sorry for them, or was you too drunk to care in the end?
Well, we had this like conversation. I wanted Leicester to go down. Really wanted Leicester to go down. To be fair, I wasn't that bothered. For me, Everton's my closest away game, so I didn't really want Everton to go down. But then I had lots of people going, "Oh no, Everton have got to go down. They keep surviving on the last game of the season," and yada yada yada. So yeah, to be fair, as long as Leicester went down, I'm not bothered really.
So, and how do you feel about playing Luton next year, Beck? Will you be making the trip? I think they got to play MK Dons.
I wouldn't get those tickets anyway. So it wouldn't be an away game that I'd go to. But I think I can remember them playing Shrewsbury. You know, Shrewsbury, Coventry, Luton. They were fixtures that I can remember going to growing up. So it is a massive story. And I was saying about I think it was Bournemouth tweeted yesterday that they were given points deductions, and so were Luton, and now both of them are in the Premier League. So like the transformation is staggering, and it's great for their supporters. It was a proper playoff final, I thought. You know, one side was in sky blue, one was in orange or a mixture of orange and white, and they were all, if anyone watched it, they were all dead on their feet in extra time, weren't they? They just couldn't keep going. And the penalties, they were really good penalties. Me and Jack watched it, Jack being a goalie, and I felt really sorry for the guy who missed, but he just didn't look confident. He looked up before he took it, and I thought, but they were really good standard of penalties before that. And it's awful, isn't it? Yeah. We always say the same. Playoffs are great fun if you're not involved in them. Like I've said a story a lot. I've been to Wembley 5 times with Shrewsbury for playoffs, finals, and Leyland DAF finals, and all those sorts of trophy finals. And Shrewsbury have lost all 5. So it's awful to go, for fans to go. But equally, if you then, like today, Carlisle have beat Stockport and they've gone through, it's brilliant. It's great. So having Luton in the league, I'm sure you two have done the same thing on Twitter on Saturday night. People were like, congratulations to Luton on 6 points next season and stuff like this. And do you remember that when Brentford got promoted and they gave them Arsenal on the first Friday night of the season? Remember that?
Yeah,
and Brentford beat Arsenal. Yeah. People were saying they'll do that with Spurs, and they'll either have Luton away or they'll be at Spurs on the Friday night. But it's only like a week and a half, I think, isn't it, till the fixtures are out for the new season?
Yeah.
I
mean, that penalty was that bad, wasn't it, Jack?
Yeah.
That some lucky Luton fan will be able to go home with that match ball.
With the ball.
That's how bad that penalty was. Some kid who was sat in row Z.
Yeah, that was
caught that ball.
Yeah. That was a Sissoko special, no doubt about it. I mean, I felt bad for a guy. I mean, I love watching playoffs. I watched the second half and the extra time of the Wednesday
Barnsley
game. And again, it's great when you're not involved, when you have no rooting interest. It's great fun, but it's painful to watch when they go to the stands and you look at the fans. I actually felt bad when Leeds knew they were down. I have no affinity for Leeds, and I'm not from the UK, so I don't have any of the tribal affiliations or rivalries or hostilities. But I always feel for them. I mean, I always feel for those fans, just because it just must be so painful.
It's always the fans that suffer, mate.
Yeah. I mean, it's the board's decisions that got them there. That the firing Marsh and then bring in Garcia, whatever his name was such a. I mean, that's a decision that's hard to defend. So I feel bad for those fans. I mean, my son was listening to the Southampton game and they were having a party. They were partying, they had a great last day, but they were already down. So, they knew where they were.
Yeah.
But he could hear the cheers from that stadium in a great 4-4 game. But yeah, I'm excited for Luton coming up. As I joked in some chat that it's, I'm really excited to see Spurs lose away somewhere new.
Don't be like that. Don't be like that, Jack.
No, I think that was on HG's page. Actually, I made a cheeky comment like that. No, I'm just kidding. It's a great story. I mean, that's one of the things in American sports you just don't get. There's no possibility of any. This club is across the street basically from me, North Carolina Football Club, and they are never going to work their way up. Not that I'm a fan of the MLS, but they're never working their way up to the MLS. It's a closed system. All our sports are closed systems. Even in baseball, where you have promotion, it's the players that move up and down. It's not the clubs, right? So it's great. I mean, I think that never talked to and most of the people around my mark. Most of the people around work are not soccer fans, but they've learned it from me. And when I explained to them how promotion relegation works, they just are amazed and they love the concept. I mean, it's a very capitalistic system. It's a very, very competitive system that we don't have here. We have socialism in our sports. We have capitalism everywhere else. And it's really, really, when they learn about it, they think that's the greatest thing they've ever heard. The idea you could take some small club. I mean, hell, freaking, you come from anywhere and get into the league theoretically. You might not stay. But I mean, Brighton, I remember when Brighton came up, everyone was saying, okay, they're going straight back down. And look, they're now in Europe.
And Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Bournemouth too. Now it helps to have a billionaire owner, but yeah.
I think I think didn't the chairman of Luton tweet on Saturday to say it was only the Premier League that had the problem with the stadium. He wants to remain up there and he wants to do whatever they can to continue the fixtures. He was like, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but something like, we've been in existence for 100 years. It's only just now the Premier League. They didn't care when we were in the first division before. So he sounds like he does. He uses the phrase "soulless bowl" as well. I was like, oh, I wonder where he's got that from.
I think
he's basically saying, no, we'll do as much as we can to stay, but I think their hand might be forced, mightn't it?
Yeah, I think they've just you've got to bring it up to a certain reg, haven't you? I mean, I don't know if it's true, but people were saying that some of it is actually quite unsafe. There. I mean,
but that's what they're saying. They're like, the Championship don't care, and the Championship haven't had a problem with it. It's only the Premier League.
But and the Premier League as well, Beck. It's going to be on telly. People from all around the world are going to be looking at that, and the Premier League want their product to be absolutely mint, don't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But like what the playoffs is, like you said, Jack. That is great. That is the great thing about football over here. Like that Luton, when they were out of the Football League and now they've come all the way up. I don't think that
this year, though, apart from Carlisle beating Stockport today, all of the teams just below the line have gone up. So third or fourth in League Two. So it's only the Carlisle, Stockport, and they were whatever it was, third and fourth or fourth and fifth as well. Anyway, so it actually has the better teams have actually made it up this year, and you can include that down to Wrexham and Notts County as well. So the playoffs are fun to extend the season, but it's ended up not making much difference. Yeah, they are.
So, Beck, is this your last? Are you after tonight's show? Are you taking a well-deserved break from cheese room duties?
I am, yes. Because like last year, you asked me before about managers. I can't even talk managers. I definitely can't talk about possible transfers, and particularly not European ones. So no, I will be watching and tuning in and learning. Yeah. Also, the HG. It's my opportunity to learn, so that when they all sign, all these players that we're going to sign, and we're going to completely, refresh the squad, and let's not even start talking about the loan players coming back. I'll be all ready on August. I think it's the 13th. Jack keeps telling me that because it's his birthday, so he's very excited.
Are you coming back for pre-season, Beck? Are you going to try and go to any pre-season games? Like last year, I went to the Rangers game, and
yes, you did. That's right.
And stuff like that, haven't we? So you're going to.
If someone wants to crowdfund me, I'll happily go to Perth. So if anyone wants, I'll go to Perth. But otherwise, probably not. No, I'll tend to watch them. There's a lot of tennis and cricket that goes on in our house in the summer, so we keep fairly busy. And then like I said, so like mid-August, I'd have thought. Yeah.
So you're not coming back pre-season, couple of weeks before the season starts. You're going to wait for the actual season to start.
Because I'm on school holidays, and then I go away for 2 weeks. So I think there's only about 5 days anyway when I.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Yeah. So and Jack, what are you going to be dropping into the cheese room, mate?
Oh yeah.
Or do you? I need a break, but we're that short on people. I think at the minute that I'm going to be dragged in.
I'm available. I'll be happy to. I'm looking forward to the show on the new manager or manager search. The late season. The season awards of most overrated, most underrated. Best player, all that sort of stuff. And then
I think do a sell or keep show, aren't we?
Yeah, sell or keep or loan. I'm all over that. Yeah, so I'll definitely be engaged. Yep, absolutely. I'm all in.
The show where we announce the new manager, the new director of football.
Oh yeah, all those shows. I'm looking forward to being
next week,
July
July
10th, as they get on the plane to Australia.
Well, I mean, we'll finish off by saying it has been a tough season. Strangely enough, the last few weeks I've been struggling to get any enthusiasm to come on and talk about Spurs. But after yesterday, it's like a weight off your shoulders. Like the season ended. I've actually
drags us back in.
Coming up. Yeah. So that's it. So we've got a few few weeks now to get dragged back in, get full of hope and full of enthusiasm, and then Mr. Levy can get his pin out and go.
When we lose to Luton on the first game of the season.
Oh no! Come on!
Oh, we gotta be away at Stamford Bridge. How could you not do that?
Yeah. So like because it's like because you're obviously this is your last show for a bit then, Beck. Are you even though we don't have this manager and that yet, are you positive that we're gonna get the right person in and it's gonna work, or are you thinking we're gonna have more of the same? Oh, come on.
Probably the latter. The problem is I don't know who's a decent manager anyway. So I want is it for it to be done. Have it done, and then we can get used to it, whatever it is, rather than, like I said before, this constant conjecture. So, yeah, get it done, get it sorted. I think the players would probably prefer that as well, because to be fair to them, if there's a few of them who thought, arguably shouldn't be here anymore, and they'll want to know about their futures being sorted. And then you've got all those, I think it's 25 loan players or something daft like that.
Yeah.
Or when we've got everyone back together. It just needs to be sorted.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on tonight. Thanks for coming on through the season. And
this Norman fella's a genius. This Norman fella's a genius. Norman, he's a genius.
I'm not in the comments at the minute, mate.
I want to say thank you to you and Craig really for because you've hosted a lot of shows this year. The late Sundays are a killer for me, and then to host on Monday. So I have really appreciated you hosting them for me, and to all the people behind the scenes, like John and all the people who do the slides and everything kind of behind the scenes, but also to all of our audience, we're here because you want us to be here. Well, that's why we come back. We'll talk nonsense, and we just will. So we do really enjoy it. It's just nice to have a little break, a bit like the players. We've got a bit of Spurs fatigue, and then we'll come back, good to go again. Yeah, but no, anyway, thank you to everyone who's kind of involved, and
nice one.
The season's over, right? The season is over. I am still sad. I love going, so I haven't got the blues yet.
Break, don't you?
But you need a break. But I do love. It would help if we had the World Cup or something to keep us occupied. We don't even have that. So yeah, I'll be itching to get back to games because I do genuinely love going. So, but
that's one of the benefits for me. Our season, my club season, is just even in the first third because we don't work on the European calendar. We play through the summer because this stupid notion of not wanting to compete with the traditional sports. But I've still got games going on every week for me here, and then I'm a big women's soccer fan, so the Women's World Cup is this summer, so that's going to be good for me. So yeah, it never ends. As my wife says, soccer is never done, ever for her. It's just 12 months a year.
In this house, it never stops. It never stops. But yeah, thanks guys for coming on. People in the comments, thanks for dropping your comments in. Please hit the like if you haven't already, and if you're not a subscriber and you enjoy what we're talking about or you want to get involved more, hit subscribe. But
don't forget the Cheese Room Patreon. Well, hold on, forget the Cheese Room Patreon chat. I mean, people want to join Chalk all summer long in the Slack rooms. Join the Patreon group for Cheese Room.
There's like a score predictions league, isn't there, Jack? And they do a fantasy football and all that. Yep. So but yeah, for everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll have loads of content over the summer, but for match day stuff now, thank God it's over. Yep. And all we got left to say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
COYS.